My name is Ethan Carter, and for 3 years, I worked on a marketing platform that I believed could change my life. I dreamed of working at Vanguard Creative, one of the biggest agencies in the country. During the day, I took freelance jobs to pay my bills. At night, I worked on my project. The person who knew everything about it was my older sister, Rachel. Whenever I finished a new part, I showed it to her. One evening, I opened my laptop and said, "Tell me what you think." Rachel looked through the presentation and smiled. "Ethan, this is amazing." "You really think so?" "Of course. You're going to impress a lot of people with this." Her support meant a lot to me. Whenever I doubted myself, she encouraged me. Whenever I felt like giving up, she pushed me forward. Because of that, I trusted her completely. A few months later, Vanguard announced a nationwide competition. The winner would receive funding and a leadership position at the company. The moment I saw the announcement, I got excited. I called Rachel immediately. "They finally announced it." "The competition?" she asked. "Yes. This is your chance." "I hope so." "No," she said confidently. "I know so." For the next few months, I worked harder than ever. Every day was focused on improving my project. Every week, Rachel reviewed my progress. The closer I got to finishing, the more hopeful I became. One Sunday, I visited my parents for dinner. Rachel was there too. Mom smiled at Rachel. "How's work going?" "Busy," Rachel replied. Dad nodded proudly. "I heard you're doing great." I waited for someone to ask about my project. Nobody did. Finally, I spoke up. "I'm entering the Vanguard competition next month." Mom looked at me briefly. "That's nice." Then the conversation went back to Rachel. I stayed quiet. On the way home, Rachel noticed my mood. "You're upset." "A little." "Because of Mom and Dad? They always seem more interested in your achievements." She sighed. "I know how it looks. It gets tiring." For a moment, she actually seemed to understand. The night before the competition deadline, I finally completed my project. I stared at the screen and smiled. 3 years of work were finally finished. I called Rachel. "I did it." "You finished?" "Everything. I told you that you could." "I can't believe it's finally done." "You should be proud of yourself." "I am." Before ending the call, I thanked her. "For what?" she asked. "For believing in me." She laughed softly. "Always." That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke up early and opened my laptop. Then my heart stopped. My project folder was gone. I searched again. Nothing. I checked my backups. Nothing. Every file had disappeared. Every draft. Every presentation. Everything. Panic took over. I immediately called Rachel. "My files are gone." "What?" "My entire project." "Maybe your computer crashed." "But only my project disappeared." "That's strange. I don't understand." She sounded concerned. "Check everything again." "I already did." There was a short silence. Then she said, "I'm sorry. Because my files were gone, I missed the deadline." 3 years of work vanished overnight. For the next week, I barely slept. I kept asking myself how this could have happened. Then the day of the award ceremony arrived. I almost didn't watch it. But I couldn't stop myself. The live broadcast began. After several speeches, a woman named Sophia Reynolds stepped onto the stage. She smiled at the audience. "And now, our grand prize winner." A presentation appeared on the giant screen behind her. The moment I saw it, my stomach dropped. I knew those slides. I knew those graphics. I knew those ideas. They were mine. Sophia opened an envelope. "This year's winner is Rachel Carter." The audience erupted with applause. I stared at the screen in shock. Rachel walked onto the stage smiling. My sister. The person I trusted most. The person who knew every detail of my project. She accepted the trophy and shook hands with executives. Then she stepped to the microphone. "This idea came from years of hard work and dedication," she said. My hands started shaking. Those years belonged to me, not her. The applause continued. Then Sophia made another announcement. "We are excited to welcome Rachel Carter to Vanguard Creative in a leadership position." The crowd cheered even louder. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. My dream project. My dream career. My dream future. Rachel had taken all of it. As the cameras focused on her smiling face, a painful truth hit me. This wasn't a coincidence. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Rachel had stolen my idea. And nobody knew except me. The moment the broadcast ended, I grabbed my keys and drove straight to Rachel's apartment. My hands were shaking the entire way. When she opened the door, she looked surprised to see me. "Ethan? You stole my project." Her expression didn't change. "What are you talking about?" "You know exactly what I'm talking about." She crossed her arms. "Be careful with your accusations. Every slide was mine. Every idea was mine." For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she smiled. A calm, cold smile. "Can you prove that?" The question hit me harder than any confession could have. "You know it was mine." "That's not what I asked." I stared at her. "You really did it." She looked away. "You should leave." I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I walked out. I drove straight to my parents' house. Surely they would listen. Surely they would know I was telling the truth. When I walked inside, Mom and Dad were already celebrating Rachel's victory. Dad smiled. "Did you see your sister on television? She stole my project." The room became silent. Mom frowned. "What?" "That winning idea was mine." Dad shook his head. "Ethan, don't do this." "I'm serious." Rachel had apparently called them already. Mom sighed. "You're just upset because she won." "No. I'm upset because she stole years of my work." Rachel worked hard for her success. So did I. Dad stood up. "You always blame someone when things go wrong." His words hurt. More than I expected. "You actually believe her?" "We believe the person who has proof." I looked from one parent to the other. Neither of them was on my side. For the first time in my life, I felt completely alone. Months passed. Rachel's success exploded. Everywhere I looked, people were praising her. Business magazines called her a rising star. Podcasts invited her for interviews. Social media treated her like a genius. Meanwhile, my life was falling apart. Clients stopped calling. I struggled to focus on work. Some friends stopped reaching out. Others clearly believed Rachel's version of events. People started seeing me as the jealous younger brother trying to steal attention. The worst part wasn't losing opportunities. It was losing confidence. Every morning, I looked in the mirror and questioned myself. Maybe I should have protected my work better. Maybe I should have seen the warning signs. Maybe trusting Rachel was my biggest mistake. One afternoon, while sitting alone in a coffee shop, I heard a familiar voice. "Ethan?" I looked up. "Daniel?" Daniel Brooks had been my college roommate years earlier. He sat down across from me. "It's been forever." "Yeah. You look terrible." I laughed. "Thanks." "I'm serious." "What's going on?" For the next hour, I told him everything. The project. The missing files. Rachel's victory. My parents choosing her side. Daniel listened quietly. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. Then he asked one simple question. "Did you save any proof?" "I don't know." "What do you mean?" "My files disappeared." "But did you ever store anything somewhere else?" "Maybe." Daniel nodded. "Then stop arguing with people." I frowned. "What?" "Stop trying to convince everyone you're right." "So what should I do?" "Find evidence." I looked at him silently. He continued. "Facts matter more than feelings." "You make it sound easy." "It's not easy." "Then why are you so calm?" "Because getting angry won't help you." For the first time in months, someone was giving me real advice instead of judgment. That night, I went home and started searching. I checked old hard drives, flash drives, cloud accounts, archived folders, anything I could find. For several days, I found nothing useful. Then, late one night, I discovered an old storage drive buried inside a drawer. I almost ignored it. Instead, I plugged it into my computer. A list of folders appeared. Most of them were old college projects. Then I saw a folder with a familiar name. My heart started racing. I opened it. Inside were early versions of my marketing platform. Drafts. Notes. Research files. Development plans. Most importantly, they contained timestamps. Dates that proved I had been working on the project long before Rachel won the competition. I stared at the screen. For the first time in months, I felt hope. The evidence wasn't enough to expose her. Not yet. But it was a beginning. I immediately called Daniel. He answered after 2 rings. Please tell me you found something. I did. How good? Very good. Proof? Not complete proof. But? I smiled for the first time in a long while. But it's enough to show the project existed years before Rachel's presentation. Daniel laughed. There you go. It's still not enough. No. But it's a start. Exactly. After ending the call, I continued looking through the files. That's when I noticed something strange. A hidden archive folder. I clicked on it. Several unfamiliar records appeared. Login histories. Backup activity. Access logs. I leaned closer to the screen. Then my eyes widened. One of the records contained information Rachel should never have left behind. Something that connected her directly to my stolen work. I stared at the evidence, my pulse racing. For the first time since everything was taken from me, I realized the truth might actually come out. And if it did, Rachel's perfect new life could begin falling apart. For the first time in months, I felt something I hadn't felt since Rachel stole my project. Hope. The files I found weren't enough to expose her completely, but they proved one thing. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining things. The project had been mine. The next morning, I met Daniel. He looked through the files while drinking coffee. This is good. Good isn't enough. It doesn't have to be enough yet. I sighed. I'm tired of waiting. I know. Daniel closed the laptop. But if you rush this, you'll lose. I hated that he was right. A few days later, Daniel introduced me to someone named Olivia Turner. She specialized in digital forensics. When we met, she got straight to the point. Show me everything. I handed her the files. She spent almost an hour reviewing them. Finally, she looked up. This proves you created the original framework. My heart raced. It does? Yes. I leaned forward. Can we expose Rachel? Olivia shook her head. Not yet. The excitement disappeared immediately. What do you mean, not yet? We have evidence. But not enough evidence. I rubbed my forehead. So what now? We keep digging. Over the next few months, Olivia examined every file I could find. Meanwhile, I made an important decision. I stopped making Rachel the center of my life. For too long, I had spent every day angry. Every morning started with bitterness. Every night ended with frustration. I was exhausted. So I focused on myself. I started a small consulting business. At first, almost nobody hired me. The first month was terrible. The second wasn't much better. But eventually things started improving. 1 client became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 10. Slowly, my confidence returned. One evening, Daniel smiled while looking at my growing client list. Not bad. It's still small. It's growing. Maybe. No maybe. I laughed. You sound like Rachel used to. The moment I said her name, the mood changed. Daniel became quiet. So, how is she doing? I opened a business article on my phone. Rachel's picture appeared on the screen. Apparently, she's doing great. At least that's what the public believed. But a few weeks later, rumors started appearing online. Nothing major at first. Just whispers. Questions. Small comments from people inside Vanguard. Rachel had built her reputation on one brilliant idea. Now the company wanted another. And another. And another. The problem was simple. The original genius had never been hers. One afternoon, Olivia called me unexpectedly. I found something. I immediately sat up. What? Login records. My heart started pounding. Explain. I tracked activity connected to your old cloud storage account. And? There was unauthorized access. I gripped the phone tighter. Whose account? A short silence followed. Then Olivia answered. Rachel's. I closed my eyes. Even though I already knew the truth, hearing it still hurt. Are you sure? Completely. Can you prove it? Yes. For several seconds, I couldn't speak. Years of trust. Years of loyalty. Years of believing she cared about me. All destroyed by one piece of evidence. That evening, I met Daniel and Olivia. She placed printed documents on the table. There it is. Daniel studied them. Wow. I looked at the records. Rachel's account. Rachel's access history. Rachel's digital footprint. All leading directly to my stolen project. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. For the first time, I felt like justice was actually possible. Then something happened that I never expected. My phone rang. I looked at the screen. Rachel. The three of us stared at it. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Are you going to answer? I hesitated. Then I picked up. Hello. Her voice sounded different. Not confident. Not powerful. Scared. Ethan? What do you want? There was a long pause. Then she spoke softly. I need your help. I almost laughed. My help. The woman who stole my future was asking for my help. That's funny. Ethan, please. Why would I help you? Another silence. Then she said something that caught my attention. Things aren't going well. I leaned back in my chair. What does that mean? I can't talk on the phone. Try. Ethan. For the first time in my life, Rachel sounded nervous. Actually nervous. Not pretending. Not acting. Genuinely afraid. I looked at Daniel and Olivia. Both were listening carefully. Finally, I asked, what's happening? Rachel exhaled slowly. Vanguard is starting to ask questions. My pulse jumped. Questions. The one thing she had avoided for years. What kind of questions? The project. I didn't respond. They want new ideas. And they aren't happy. I almost smiled. Because deep down, I already knew why. She couldn't recreate brilliance that never belonged to her. Rachel lowered her voice. Ethan, can we meet? I stared out the window. Months ago, I would have done anything to hear her admit weakness. Now that it was happening, I felt surprisingly calm. What for? Please. No. Ethan. You didn't help me when my life fell apart. I know. You watched everyone call you a genius. I know. You let Mom and Dad believe I was lying. Her voice broke slightly. I know. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then I ended the call. The room remained silent. Daniel finally spoke. Well. Olivia nodded. She's scared. I looked down at the evidence spread across the table. The proof was growing stronger. Rachel's confidence was disappearing. And Vanguard was beginning to notice the cracks. For the first time since everything was stolen, the balance of power was starting to change. And I had a feeling Rachel's carefully built world was about to start collapsing. 2 days after Rachel called me, she asked to meet in person. At first, I ignored her messages. Then she sent another. Please. Just once. Curiosity finally won. We met at a small cafe across town. When Rachel walked in, I barely recognized her. The confident woman who had stood on stage accepting my award was gone. She looked exhausted. Dark circles sat under her eyes. She sat across from me and avoided eye contact. You wanted to talk, I said. Rachel nodded. They want another breakthrough. I folded my arms. So give them one. I can't. For a moment, I simply stared at her. Years ago, I had imagined this moment. I thought I would enjoy watching her panic. Instead, I mostly felt disappointed. You knew this day would come. I didn't think it would happen this fast. I laughed. You built your career on a lie. Rachel looked down. I know. Do you? She didn't answer. A few seconds later, I stood up. If that's all, I'm leaving. Ethan, wait. What? Her eyes filled with worry. If they find out. When they find out. She looked away. I walked out of the cafe without saying another word. A week later, something unexpected happened. I received an email from Vanguard Creative. The sender's name was Marcus Hale. Rachel's department director. I read the message 3 times. I'd like to speak with you regarding a confidential matter. My pulse quickened. I immediately called Daniel. You won't believe this. What happened? Someone from Vanguard contacted me. Silence. Then Daniel laughed. Well, that's interesting. The next day, I met Marcus. He was professional and direct. After a brief introduction, he asked a question that caught me off guard. How familiar are you with Rachel's award-winning project? I carefully chose my words. Very familiar. Marcus studied me. Why? Because I created it. The answer sat on the tip of my tongue. Instead, I asked, why are you asking? Marcus sighed. There are inconsistencies. My heart raced. What kind? Rachel's recent work doesn't match the level of the original project. I stayed quiet. He continued. Several executives have noticed. For the next hour, Marcus asked questions. Nothing aggressive. Nothing accusatory. Just questions. And the more we talked, the more interested he became. Before leaving, I handed him some of the evidence Olivia had collected. His expression changed immediately. This is significant. It gets worse. Marcus looked at me. I'd like to see everything. When I left the meeting, I knew something important had started. The company was finally paying attention. Over the next month, Vanguard quietly launched an internal investigation. Executives reviewed competition submissions, archived emails, project timelines, development records. Every day brought more pressure for Rachel. Meanwhile, Olivia continued digging. One evening, she called me. I found something. My heart jumped. Again? This one's bigger. Daniel and I met her immediately. She placed several documents on the table. Look closely. I studied the pages. At first, I didn't understand. Then I noticed the dates. The timestamps. The usernames. My eyes widened. No way. Olivia smiled slightly. Oh yes. What am I looking at? Archived system logs. Daniel leaned forward. And? Olivia pointed at the records. Every stage of the project's development was created under Ethan's name. My heart nearly stopped. Months before Rachel ever submitted the idea. Months before the competition. Months before the theft. Everything was there. Every revision. Every update. Every version. A complete history. The kind of evidence nobody could argue with. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Daniel broke the silence. This is it. Olivia nodded. This is the final piece. I stared at the documents. 4 years, the truth had been buried. Now it was sitting right in front of me. Clear. Simple. Undeniable. A few days later, Rachel called again. This time, I answered. What? Her voice sounded shaky. They're investigating me. I wasn't surprised. I know. Silence. Then she asked, how? Because the truth always finds a way out. I almost said it. Instead, I replied, maybe they're finally asking the right questions. Ethan. What? If they find out everything, my career is over. I closed my eyes. For a moment, I remembered all the nights I spent building that project. All the sacrifices. All the trust. Then I remembered watching her stand on that stage. My career ended a long time ago. She didn't respond. A week later, Vanguard made its decision. Both Rachel and I received official notices. A formal hearing had been scheduled. Attendance was mandatory. The company wanted answers. Real answers. That night, I sat with Daniel and Olivia. None of us said much. The hearing would decide everything. Years of lies. Years of betrayal. Years of silence. All leading to one moment. My phone buzzed. Another message from Rachel. I didn't open it. Instead, I looked at the folder containing all the evidence. The truth was finally ready to be heard. The next morning, an email arrived from Vanguard's executive office. The subject line made my heart pound. Official hearing notice. I opened it. At the bottom of the message was a single question the company intended to answer. A question that could change all our lives. Who is the real creator of this idea? The hearing became the most important day of my life. I barely slept the night before. Years of anger, frustration, and disappointment had all led to this moment. When I arrived at Vanguard's headquarters, my stomach was full of nerves. Daniel and Olivia came with me. You ready? Daniel asked. As ready as I'll ever be. Olivia smiled. Just tell the truth. That's all you need to do. We entered the conference room together. Several senior executives were already seated around a large table. At the head sat a man I immediately recognized. Victor Lang. The CEO of Vanguard Creative. A few minutes later, Rachel walked in. She looked nothing like the confident woman from the award ceremony. She looked nervous. Scared. For the first time since all of this began, I could see fear in her eyes. The meeting started. Victor looked around the room. Thank you all for attending. Nobody spoke. He continued. We are here to determine the ownership of the project that won our national innovation competition. My pulse quickened. This was it. One executive began presenting evidence. First came the project timelines. Then the development records. Then the archived files. Every piece pointed toward me. Rachel remained silent. Another executive stood. We also reviewed cloud access records. My eyes moved toward Rachel. She lowered her head. The executive continued. These records show unauthorized access to Ethan Carter's project files. The room grew quiet. Then Olivia presented her findings. She explained the login history, the timestamps, the digital trail. Every detail connected Rachel to my stolen work. Victor listened carefully. So the evidence confirms access before the competition? Yes, Olivia answered. Without question. Another executive displayed additional records. My original drafts appeared on a large screen. Next to them were Rachel's competition submissions. They were nearly identical. The similarities were impossible to ignore. Victor turned toward Rachel. Would you like to explain this? Rachel swallowed hard. For several seconds, she said nothing. Then she finally spoke. I worked on the project. Her voice sounded weak. An executive immediately responded. Then why do all development records belong to Ethan? Rachel didn't answer. More evidence followed. Archived system logs. Version histories. Backup records. Every new document made her position worse. The truth was becoming impossible to escape. I sat quietly and watched. Part of me wanted to feel victorious. Instead, I mostly felt exhausted. I had spent years waiting for someone to listen. Now everyone was listening. Victor leaned forward. Rachel, this is your opportunity to tell the truth. The room became silent. No phones. No typing. No movement. Just silence. Rachel looked around the table. Then she looked at me. For a brief moment, I saw tears in her eyes. At first, she tried to speak. Nothing came out. She tried again. Still nothing. Finally, her voice broke. I took it. Silence. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The words echoed through the room. For years, I had imagined hearing that confession. Yet when it finally happened, it felt strangely empty. Rachel lowered her head. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I took the project. The room remained silent. Victor slowly nodded. Thank you for your honesty. Rachel laughed bitterly. Honesty came too late. Nobody disagreed. A few moments later, she continued speaking. I was jealous. I looked at her. She wiped her eyes. Ethan always had ideas. The room listened carefully. He always found solutions. He always created things people admired. I didn't know what to say. Rachel continued. And I hated it. Her confession shocked everyone. Including me. I thought he would become more successful than me. She looked directly at me. When I saw the project, I panicked. I clenched my fists. So you stole it? She nodded slowly. Yes. The room felt heavier with every word. Rachel took a deep breath. I told myself I deserved the opportunity. Her voice cracked. But I didn't. Victor closed the file in front of him. The investigation was over. The truth was clear. A few minutes later, the executives stepped out to discuss their final decision. Nobody spoke while they were gone. Rachel stared at the table. I stared out the window. Daniel and Olivia remained beside me. Eventually, the executives returned. Victor stood. After a brief pause, he announced the decision. Rachel Carter's employment with Vanguard Creative is terminated effective immediately. Rachel closed her eyes. She didn't argue. She didn't protest. She simply nodded. Deep down, she already knew this was coming. Victor continued. The company will also issue a public correction regarding ownership of the project. My heart pounded. Years of waiting. Years of being ignored. Years of being called jealous. All finally ending. Victor looked directly at me. Our investigation has determined that Ethan Carter is the original creator of the award-winning project. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Nobody believed me for so long. Now the truth was official. Daniel smiled. Olivia looked relieved. Even some executives nodded respectfully. The meeting ended shortly afterward. People slowly began leaving the room. Rachel remained seated. I thought she would leave without saying anything. Instead, she stood and walked toward me. Her eyes were red from crying. Ethan. I looked at her quietly. She hesitated. Then she spoke. Can we talk? I said nothing. She swallowed hard. One last time. For the first time since her confession, I saw something I hadn't expected. Not arrogance. Not excuses. Not manipulation. Only regret. And somehow, that felt heavier than everything else. As Rachel stood there waiting for my answer, I realized the truth had finally won. But our story wasn't over yet. A few days after the hearing, Rachel called me again. This time, I answered. Can we meet? She asked quietly. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to walk away forever. But another part wanted closure. One meeting, I said. Thank you. We met at a small park near our childhood neighborhood. When Rachel arrived, she looked completely different from the sister I once knew. There was no confidence. No pride. No excuses. Only regret. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Rachel broke the silence. I destroyed my own life. I looked at her. You destroyed mine first. She lowered her head. I know. Those two words carried more weight than any speech she could have given. I never thought it would go this far, she said. It went exactly where it was always going. She nodded slowly. You trusted me. More than anyone. Her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell her that everything was fine. But it wasn't. 3 years of work had been stolen. Years of trust had been broken. Some wounds couldn't disappear with an apology. You didn't just take a project, I said. You took my future. Rachel wiped her eyes. I know. For the first time, she wasn't defending herself. She wasn't making excuses. She was simply accepting responsibility. After a long silence, she stood up. I don't expect forgiveness. Good. A sad smile crossed her face. That's fair. Before leaving, she looked at me one final time. I hope someday you get everything you deserve. Then she walked away. I watched her disappear down the path. For years, I had imagined revenge. I thought victory would feel amazing. Instead, I mostly felt tired. The fight was over. The damage remained. A week later, my parents asked to meet me. At first, I didn't want to go. But eventually, I agreed. The moment I entered their house, I noticed how uncomfortable they looked. Dad spoke first. Ethan, we're sorry. I remained silent. Mom's eyes filled with tears. We should have listened to you. You should have. Neither of them argued. Dad nodded. We failed you. The room became quiet. 4 years, they had chosen Rachel's side. 4 years, they ignored my pain. Now they finally understood what their favoritism had done. I trusted all of you, I said. Mom looked down. I know. Trust wasn't something that could be repaired in a single conversation. But for the first time, they were taking responsibility. That mattered. A few days later, I received another call. This time it came from Victor Lang, the CEO of Vanguard Creative. Good afternoon, Ethan. Hello. I wanted to personally invite you to our press conference next week. I froze. The public announcement. Yes. 4 years, I had dreamed about working for Vanguard. Now the company wanted to publicly recognize me. The day of the conference arrived quickly. Reporters filled the room. Cameras pointed toward the stage. The atmosphere felt unreal. Victor stepped to the microphone. Thank you all for being here. The room became quiet. After a brief introduction, he addressed the investigation. Then he said the words I had waited years to hear. Our company has completed its review. I held my breath. The original creator of the award-winning marketing platform is Ethan Carter. Flashes exploded across the room. Questions immediately followed. Reporters began writing notes. For the first time, the truth wasn't hidden. It wasn't questioned. It wasn't ignored. It was public. Victor continued speaking. We regret the circumstances that delayed this recognition. Then he looked toward me. And we are pleased to offer Ethan Carter the leadership position that should have been his from the beginning. For a moment, I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The dream job. The opportunity. The future I thought had been stolen forever. It was finally mine. After the conference ended, reporters surrounded me. Questions came from every direction. How does this feel? What was the hardest part? Do you forgive your sister? I answered politely, but my mind remained focused on one thing. The truth had finally won. Over the following weeks, news articles covered the story nationwide. Many people supported me. Others criticized Rachel. I didn't enjoy watching her become a public example. Life had already punished her enough. Her career was gone. Her reputation was damaged. Her choices had caught up with her. That was karma. I didn't need anything more. Several months later, I stood inside my new office at Vanguard Creative. Sunlight poured through the windows. The city stretched across the horizon. For a long moment, I simply stood there, thinking, remembering, the night my files disappeared. The anger, the betrayal, the loneliness, the feeling of being completely alone. Then I thought about the people who helped me survive it. Daniel, the friend who believed me when nobody else did. Olivia, the woman who helped uncover the truth. Even the version of myself that refused to quit when everything seemed hopeless. A knock interrupted my thoughts. Daniel stepped inside. Nice office. I laughed. It's not bad. Not bad, he said. It's amazing. A moment later, Olivia joined us. She smiled. Looks like things worked out. They did. Daniel looked around the room. You earned this. Maybe he was right. Not because I won. Not because Rachel lost. But because I kept going. That was the real victory. As they left, I walked back toward the window. The city lights were beginning to appear below. For the first time in years, I felt peaceful. Rachel had stolen my dream career. For a while, she stole my confidence too. But she could never steal my talent. She could never steal my determination. And she could never steal the truth. In the end, the company asked the question that changed everything. Who was the real owner of the idea? The answer had always been the same. It was me. And finally, the whole world knew it.